Forget the Hollywood Hills. Some comedians are living in tiny trailers, Brooklyn apartments, or even rural farms. These aren't struggling comics. These are A-listers who just refuse to spend their cash. We're about to expose 20 stars who live like they are poor. One of them even gave most of his money away. 1. Doug Stanhope. When you think of a world-famous comedian, a guy who has been at the top of the game for decades, you probably picture a mansion in the Hollywood Hills. You picture shiny cars and a life of total luxury. Well, Doug Stanhope is not that guy. To put it mildly, he's the exact opposite. This is a man who could easily afford a massive compound in Los Angeles, but he chose a different path. You see, Doug Stanhope lives in a small, remote town in Arizona. And he doesn't just live in a house, he lives in a trailer. This isn't some fancy, high-end mobile home. It's a simple, basic trailer, the kind you'd see in a dusty, off-the-grid lot. Why would he do this? Because Stanhope isn't just playing a character on stage. His comedy, which is famous for being anti-consumerist and railing against the system, is exactly how he lives his life. He truly believes that the pursuit of wealth and stuff is a trap. He doesn't want to be part of that system. He makes his money by telling everyone that money and fame are a joke. And then he proves it by shunning them completely. He's hundreds of miles away from the spotlight, living a life that most people would call poor. But for him, it's the only way to stay sane. He's not just talking the talk. He's living it one day at a time in his Arizona trailer. Living this way by choice is one thing. But what about a comedian who was the king of the world, only to lose it all and be forced into a much simpler life? Our next comedian faced a massive public scandal and had to change everything, starting with his tiny apartment. 2. Louis C.K. There was a time when Louis C.K. was, without a doubt, the biggest comedian on the planet. He had sold-out arena tours, a hit TV show, and all the power in Hollywood. He was on top of the world. Then, following a huge public controversy, it all came crashing down. His career hit a massive wall, and he went from being everywhere to being nowhere. When he started to creep back into the public eye, it wasn't with a big, flashy comeback. He started from the ground up, and his lifestyle reflected that. The thing nobody tells you is that even as he started making money again, he didn't go back to a life of luxury. He was known to be living in a tiny New York City apartment. We're not talking about a fancy penthouse. We're talking about a small, cramped space that's a far cry from what you'd expect from a comedy giant. What's even crazier is how he runs his business now. He completely cut out the middlemen. No big agents, no massive corporations. He self-funds his own tours and specials, selling tickets directly to his fans. He's building his career back, but he's doing it on his own terms, living a much smaller, simpler life than before. It's a huge change from his days at the top, but while some are forced into a simple life, our next comedian just couldn't hold on to his money. His modest home was the result of a very different kind of problem. 3. Norm Macdonald. Norm Macdonald was a true legend, a comedian's comedian. He was the anchor of Weekend Update on Saturday Night Live and a beloved guest on every talk show. He was, by all accounts, a comedy genius. With a career like that, you would assume he was living in a palace, counting his millions. But that just wasn't Norm's style. Believe it or not, Norm lived in a very modest, simple home in Toronto, Canada. It wasn't a sprawling estate, it was just a regular house in a regular neighborhood. The thing is, money just seemed to pass right through his hands. What many overlooked was that Norm was a huge fan of high-stakes games. He loved the thrill of it, and he wasn't always lucky. He would often talk about losing huge sums of money in a single night. But here's the other side of the story, the side that makes him so fascinating. Norm was also incredibly generous. He was known to donate massive amounts of money to charities and to people in need, but he always did it in secret. He never wanted the credit. He just didn't care about being rich. For him, the money was just something to be used, whether for a game or for helping someone out. His simple home was a perfect reflection of a man who just didn't value material things. Norm's quiet life was one thing, but our next comedian takes the word quiet to a whole new level. He actively hides from the spotlight in a Boston suburb, all to save his own sanity. 4. Steven Wright. Steven Wright is an icon. His deadpan, one-liner comedy style changed the game in the 1980s. He was nominated for a Grammy and even won an Oscar. He's a comedian who could be selling out arenas year-round if he wanted to, but he doesn't. In fact, he does everything he can to avoid the spotlight. You won't find Steven Wright living in Hollywood. You won't find him at flashy parties or driving fancy cars. Instead, he lives a very reclusive, very quiet life in a simple suburb near Boston, Massachusetts. He's been in the same area for decades. The reason? He just doesn't like the stress and the phoniness of the industry. He would rather live a normal, peaceful life. This choice also affects his bank account. He's famous for avoiding big, long, grueling tours. A tour like that could make him millions of dollars in a few months, but for Steven, it's not worth the mental toll. He performs when he wants to, on his own terms. He'd rather save his money and his sanity than chase a bigger paycheck. He's a true minimalist, a man who figured out exactly what he needed to be happy, and it wasn't a mansion or a private jet. It was just peace and quiet. Living a quiet life for your own sanity makes sense. But our next comedian lives a simple life for a very different reason. It's all about his family. 5. Brian Regan. In the world of stand-up, Brian Regan is a king. He's one of the most respected and successful comedians working today, famous for his clean, family-friendly humor. This guy sells out theaters and arenas across the country. He's had multiple hit specials and could afford any luxury he wants. But if you were to look at his life, you'd never know he was a millionaire. Brian Regan is a true family man, and that's what guides all his decisions. He lives in Florida, not to be near a flashy beach scene, but to be close to his family in a regular suburban neighborhood. You won't see him pulling up in a shiny new Lamborghini. Instead, he's known for driving modest, practical cars. He doesn't spend his money on flashy clothes or giant mansions. His entire focus is on clean living, not just in his comedy, but in his life. He avoids the entire celebrity trap. He's not interested in splurging on himself. He just wants to be a good dad and a good person. It's incredibly rare in show business to find someone so successful and so completely down to earth. He's proof that you can be at the top of your game without letting the fame and money change who you are. A simple family life is one thing, but our next comedian's life is anything but simple. It's just as eccentric and strange as his onstage persona, right down to the puppets. 6. Emo Phillips. Emo Phillips is one of the most unique and bizarre comedians ever. His strange, high-pitched voice and off-kilter delivery have made him a cult icon for decades. He's a legend in the comedy world. But his life off stage is just as weird and fascinating as his act. He lives a life that most people would find completely baffling. He's based in Chicago, but based is a loose term. He's known for his eccentric lifestyle, which doesn't involve any of the traditional signs of success. He doesn't have a manager booking him into huge, high-paying theaters. Instead, he's famous for supplementing his income with all sorts of odd jobs, things you would never expect a comedy legend to do. But the wildest part? He is rumored to still use puppets in his creative process and even for side gigs. Can you imagine? A guy this famous and he's still tinkering with puppets to make ends meet. He's known for taking sporadic gigs, sometimes in big clubs, sometimes in tiny, weird venues. He doesn't seem to care about money or fame at all. He's a true artist, living in his own strange world, completely removed from the Hollywood machine. Living an eccentric life is one thing, but our next comedian is deep in the heart of the Los Angeles podcast world, yet he still dresses like he shops at a thrift store. 7. Paul F. Tompkins. If you listen to comedy podcasts, you know Paul F. Tompkins, or PFT as he's known. He's a podcasting king, a regular on shows like Comedy Bang Bang, and the host of his own. He's also a talented actor and a world-class stand-up. He's a working comedian in the heart of Los Angeles, which means he's surrounded by wealth and luxury. But he's not a part of it. The thing about PFT is his famous style. He's always dressed in a dapper suit. But here's the kicker. He's well known for his love of thrift store fashion. He's not going to high-end designers. He's finding classic, cool clothes on a budget. And that's just a symbol for how he lives his whole life. He's part of the LA grind, but he's not living the LA lifestyle. He doesn't have a big entourage. He isn't spotted at all the fancy clubs. He's a hard-working guy who just seems to love the craft of comedy. He lives a relatively normal, modest life. He's the opposite of the flashy Hollywood star. He's just a guy who works hard, loves a good suit, and doesn't need a mansion to be happy. Dressing well on a budget is smart, but our next comedian takes living simply to a much more serious level, choosing to spend her money on her mental well-being instead of luxury. 8. Maria Bamford. Maria Bamford is a comedic genius. Her style is surreal, deeply personal, and absolutely hilarious. She's had multiple comedy specials and even her own TV show, Lady Dynamite. She has earned a lot of money in her career, but she is also one of the most outspoken and honest comedians when it comes to living a frugal life. Maria lives in a relatively small, modest home in Pasadena, California. It's a far cry from the gated communities of her peers. She's been very open about her reasons. Maria is a huge advocate for taking care of your mind and well-being. She has been open about her own personal struggles and knows the importance of stability. For her, money isn't for buying fancy cars or giant houses. Money is for security. It's for making sure she has good health care. It's for paying for therapy. She chooses to spend her money on her well-being over any kind of luxury item. She's also famous for being an anti-consumerist, often talking about her tightwad nature. She's a prime example of someone who has their priorities perfectly in order, putting her health and sanity above all the empty promises of wealth. Living in a small home makes sense, but our next comedian doesn't even bother with owning a home. He's a full-time renter in one of the most expensive cities in the world. 9. Todd Barry. Todd Barry is a master of the deadpan, a comedian's comedian known for his brilliant crowd work and his slow, methodical delivery. He's been in the game for a long time, appearing in movies, on TV shows, and touring constantly. He's a true veteran of the craft, and you would never ever guess it by the way he lives. Todd is a minimalist through and through. He lives in New York City, one of the priciest places on earth, but he doesn't own a fancy condo. He's a renter, living in a simple apartment. He doesn't own a car. Why would he? It's just another thing to worry about. But the most amazing part is how he tours. This is a guy who could easily demand a luxury tour bus or first-class flights. Instead, Todd Barry is famous for touring by bus, a regular public bus. He'll ride for hours, just like a regular person, to get to his next gig. His comedy is full of jokes that mock materialism and the wealthy. It's clear this isn't just an act. He truly believes in living a simple, uncluttered life. He's a true minimalist in a world of excess. Touring by bus is hardcore. Our next comedian also keeps it simple on the road, but for him, It's all about staying connected to his family, even when he's miles away. 10. Mike Birbiglia. Mike Birbiglia is more than just a comedian. He's a master storyteller. His one-man shows, like Sleepwalk with Me, have become massive hits, blending comedy and heartfelt drama. He's a New York Times best-selling author and a successful filmmaker. He's a big deal. But his life is all about one thing: his family. Mike lives in Brooklyn with his wife and kids. He doesn't live in a giant Manhattan penthouse. He lives in a family neighborhood focused on his home life. This family-first attitude extends to his work. When he has to go on tour, he doesn't fly in private jets and stay in five-star hotels. Instead, he's known for taking van trips for his shows. He'll travel in a simple van, often with his family, making it a road trip instead of a luxury tour. He talks about it all the time. His priority is not fame or fortune. His priority is being a present father and husband. He's found a way to be a world-class artist while keeping his feet firmly on the ground, proving that a simple family life is the most valuable thing. A simple family life is one thing. But our next comedian had to build a new, simple life from scratch after a very public and very tough personal time. 11. John Mulaney. John Mulaney was the golden boy of comedy. With his sharp suits and clean-cut image, he was selling out places like Radio City Music Hall multiple nights in a row. He was a head writer for Saturday Night Live and had multiple universally loved comedy specials. He seemed to have a perfect life, but as many people now know, he went through a very tough personal time. He had to step away from the spotlight to focus on getting his life back together, including getting clean. It was a massive public story. After this recovery period, he didn't just jump back into his old life. He had to start over in many ways. He now lives a much more sober, focused life, splitting time between cities like Chicago. But it's not the flashy celebrity life from before. He's living in a modest condo, not a sprawling estate. His budget is different now, with a strong focus on therapy and his well-being. He's rebuilding his career and his life, but he's doing it with a new, simpler, and more humble approach. He's a testament to the fact that you can come back from a hard time, but you have to focus on what's real. Starting over is tough. But our next comedian is from the UK, and he's been living a simple life from the start, despite being one of the richest comedians in his country. 12. Frankie Boyle. If you're in the United Kingdom, you know Frankie Boyle. He's one of the most famous and most controversial comedians in the country. His dark, edgy humor has earned him millions of dollars and a household name. He could be living in a castle in the Scottish Highlands. But that is not Frankie Boyle. Despite his immense wealth, Frankie lives in a simple flat in Glasgow, Scotland. Not a penthouse, just a regular flat. He's notorious for rejecting all the perks of being a celebrity. He doesn't do the big, flashy TV panel shows anymore. He's not interested in being a red carpet celebrity. But here's the most amazing part. He's known for donating huge amounts of his money to different causes he believes in. He's very political and very passionate, and he puts his money where his mouth is. He's a man who looks at the world, sees its problems, and would rather use his money to try and fix them than to buy himself a new car. He's a rare example of a celebrity who actively rejects the wealth he's earned. Rejecting wealth is a powerful statement. Our next comedian takes it a step further, building his entire act and his life around a critique of the very system that makes him money. 13. Stuart Lee. Stuart Lee is not your average comedian. He's considered by many to be a genius, an artist who deconstructs comedy on stage. He's an anti-capitalist, and his shows are often long, winding rants against consumerism, the media, and the very idea of celebrity. And he lives that life too. He lives in Brighton, a quirky, artsy city on the coast of England. He's famous for biking almost everywhere he goes. He doesn't have a fancy car. He's not interested in status symbols. His entire life is a reflection of his act. He critiques the phoniness of the entertainment world and then refuses to take part in it. He could be a much bigger star. He could sell out and make a lot more money. But he chooses not to. He'd rather perform in smaller theaters to audiences who get it than in giant arenas. He's a man of principle, living a simple, bike-friendly life, and using his comedy as a weapon against the very things he hates, all while living humbly. Biking everywhere is a choice, but our next comedian takes the do-it-yourself ethos to an extreme, running his entire career from a tiny home with a cash-only mindset. 14. Daniel Kitson. Daniel Kitson is perhaps the biggest comedian you've never heard of. In the UK, he's a legend, a cult hero who sells out his shows in minutes. But he does everything in his power to avoid becoming famous. He has no TV agent, he doesn't do panel shows, and he almost never does interviews. He runs his entire operation himself, on his own terms. He lives in a tiny place in Sheffield, England, far from the London media bubble. From this small home base, he organizes his own do-it-yourself tours. He books the venues, he writes the emails, and he keeps his ticket prices incredibly low so that real fans can afford to come. Here's the wildest part. He has a cash-only ethos. He doesn't have a big merchandise empire. You can't buy a Daniel Kitson t-shirt or coffee mug. He just wants to perform his show, make enough money to live his simple life, and be left alone. He has actively turned down, according to rumors, millions of dollars in TV deals because he just doesn't want to be a part of that world. A cash-only life is a rare thing. But our next comedian doesn't just reject money. She actively gives away her time, living in shared housing to support her beliefs. 15. Josie Long. Josie Long is a beloved comedian in the UK, known for her cheerful, quirky, and fiercely political comedy. She's an activist, and her beliefs are not just part of her act, they are her entire life. She's had a very successful career, but she would rather use her platform to fight for change than to build a personal fortune. She lives in London, one of the most expensive cities in the world, but she's known for living in shared housing. That's right, a famous, successful comedian living with roommates. She does this to save money, but also as a political statement about community and the housing crisis. What many overlook is how much time she volunteers. She gives her time and energy to causes she believes in, from refugee rights to community organizing. She would rather be at a protest or helping at a food bank than at a glamorous industry event. She is the living, breathing example of a person who puts her principles far above any personal profit. She lives a life of service, proving that comedy can be a tool for real-world change. Living with roommates is a statement. Our next comedian doesn't even have a house, choosing to live as a nomad, camping out to do research for his political comedy. 16. Mark Thomas. Mark Thomas is a force of nature. He's a political comedian and an activist in the UK, famous for his stunts and his investigative-style shows. He's less of a comedian and more of a journalist who happens to be hilarious. He's had hit TV shows and tours, but his life is anything but comfortable. He's a political nomad. He lives in Sussex but is rarely there. His life is his work. When he's researching a new show, perhaps about an arms company or a corrupt politician, he doesn't do it from a comfortable office. He goes to the source. This often means living in very basic conditions. He's been known to camp out for long periods, living in a tent or a cheap van, just to get the story. He lives off his gig fees, pouring any money he makes right back into his next investigation. He's a man on a mission, and that mission does not include a nice house, a new car, or a comfortable life. He's a true road warrior living on the edge to expose the truth. Camping out is extreme. Our next comedian lives in a fancy LA apartment, but the reason he lives poorly has to do with his exuhate and his extreme generosity. 17. Jim Jefferies. Jim Jefferies is a global comedy superstar. The Australian comedian sells out arenas all over the world. He's had his own late-night show, multiple blockbuster specials, and is worth millions. But when you hear him talk about his life, a different picture emerges. He lives in a nice apartment in Los Angeles, but he often jokes that he's broke. Why? For one, he's been open about his personal life, including breakups, and has joked that his ex-partners ended up with a lot of his stuff and his money. He's often told stories about living in his nice apartment, but it's full of his ex's furniture. But the real reason he lives a simpler life is his generosity. He is known to be incredibly generous, donating heavily to causes he cares about and helping out friends and family. He's a guy who makes a ton of money, but he doesn't seem to have a strong desire to hoard it. He'd rather spread it around. So while he lives in LA, he's not living the typical look-at-me celebrity life. He's just a guy who likes to tell jokes and share his good fortune. Sharing the wealth is one thing. Our next comedian is so anti-Hollywood that she moved to a rural farm on the other side of the world to escape it all. 18. Hannah Gadsby. Hannah Gadsby changed comedy forever with her show, Nanette. It was a global phenomenon that turned her from a well-liked Australian comic into one of the most talked-about performers in the world. With that kind of success comes a lot of pressure and a lot of money. She could have moved to Hollywood, become a huge star, and lived in a mansion. She did the exact opposite. She rejected Hollywood completely. After the whirlwind of fame, Hannah moved back to her home state of Tasmania in Australia. And she didn't just move to the city, she moved to a rural farm. She lives a quiet, isolated life, focused on her art and her well-being. She's been very open about how toxic the celebrity world can be, and she wanted no part of it. She chose her art over assets. She's not interested in building a brand or a lifestyle empire. She just wants to live a real, authentic life, far away from the cameras, where she can focus on what's important. It's a powerful move from someone who had the world at her feet. A farm in Tasmania is about as far from Hollywood as you can get. Our next comedian also sticks to his roots, keeping his truck and trailer vibe despite massive success. 19. Theo Von. Theo Von has one of the most unique voices in comedy. His This Past Weekend podcast is one of the biggest in the world. He's a massive star, but the core of his entire personality is his Louisiana roots. He's the Rat King, a guy who feels more at home in the bayou than in Beverly Hills. And his lifestyle reflects that. He's not trying to be a fancy Hollywood celebrity. He keeps his truck and trailer vibe. He talks openly about his simple Southern upbringing, and it's clear he never let go of it. He's the kind of guy who's more impressed by a guy who can fix an engine than a guy who owns a private jet. He's making millions of dollars, but his vibe is still about hunting, fishing, and hanging out with his old friends. He doesn't seem to be spending his money on the typical luxury goods. He's just Theo. He's a down-to-earth guy who happens to be a huge star, but he'd trade it all in a second to go fishing. He's a perfect example of staying true to who you are, no matter how successful you get. Staying true to your roots is important, but our final comedian had his big break fall apart, and he was forced to go back to his roots, rebuilding his career from a Philly row house. 20. Shane Gillis. Shane Gillis is one of the hottest comedians on the planet right now. His specials are huge, and his podcast is a monster hit. But his road to success was incredibly rocky. He was famously hired and then just days later fired from Saturday Night Live after old clips of him getting into hot water surfaced. His big break fell apart. He could have disappeared, but he didn't. He went back to his roots. He's a Philly guy, and he has that simple row house and beer league sports energy. After facing that major cancellation, he didn't try to be a fancy LA guy. He just doubled down on being himself. He built his new career through his podcast, funded directly by his fans. He's now a massive independent star, but he's not living like one. He still has that Philly row house simplicity. He hangs with his old buddies. He plays sports. He's not interested in the flashy life that was taken from him. He'd rather build something real, on his own terms, living a simple life and proving that you don't need the Hollywood machine to be a massive success.